Good evening, everyone. It's Mount Juliet Board of Commissioners. Today is July the 12th. I will call this meeting to order and declare a quorum present. We have all 5 elected officials plus Mayor Shade with us here today. So at this point, I'll ask our fire chief if he would to come forward to lead us in an invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Thank you, sir. With the seating of the new mayor, might I also attempt a few budget amendments? Oddly enough, I got that from the last mayor. Thank you. All right. In the book of Matthew, we're commanded to let our light shine. You are the light of the world, a city that is set on a hill that cannot be hidden, nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Yet let your light so shine before all, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. Let us pray. Father, we thank you for every seat that's been filled here today. For each mind and heart that fills the presence of this room, we thank you. Heavenly Father, only you truly know what we're setting out to accomplish today. We have an idea, a vision, hints, and daily instructions. We have talents, abilities, and time to work. However, only you can see in perfect detail the end of every beginning, every project, every season, every life. Nothing is ever in vain, for even mistakes and missteps you can use for good. Your righteousness and grace transcend all our efforts and understanding. Forgive us of our pride, the pride that puffs us up and threatens to unqualify us. Strengthen our confidence in who you have made us to be. Set us free from comparison in order to work together efficiently. Bless this meeting tonight, all those present as well as the lives of those we will encounter afterwards. Ready us to make every moment count for our community, your people. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. If you stand, please, for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Chief. At this point, I'll set the agenda as published if there's no objections. And then I'll ask for approval of the minutes from the regular meeting on June 28th. Is there a motion? We have a motion and a second. I noticed there was one update. I'm asking City Recorder here. Was that captured in the minutes as published?
Yes.
All right. All right. All in favor of the minutes as published, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any abstentions, nays? All right. Passes unanimously. Our next item on the agenda is citizen comments. If you'll come forward, you'll be recognized by Mayor Shade for 3 minutes. You need to give your name and address for the record, and you can speak on any topic. I will remind you that this is most likely will be your only opportunity to speak. We do not take comments on agenda items themselves, but at this point, we'll open the floor to citizen comments.
Name and address.
My name is Brad Lytle. I live at 1030 John Wright Road, just outside the city. So I don't have any skin in the game with what goes on with the rules within the city limits. Although as I travel around the roads here, I am a little concerned about going from 20 down to 10 acres. It seems like the 20 acres for development has given us quite a few residents and vehicles on the road already, and I just am concerned, not that I'm in favor of taking away property rights or anything for people that have only 10 acres, but I just think it's a cautionary thing that we should be considerate in everything we do around here about making sure that the traffic is taken care of, and that's all I had to say.
Asking for the name and address.
Name and address.
Gina Clark, 217 Old Town in Mount Juliet. And there are just a few of us here, and we've been talking about the same thing that this gentleman mentioned. We're all against the reduction of the zoning from the 20 acres to 10. We are concerned about traffic, increased population, expenses, crime, all that. And we would love to retain the wonderful character that Mount Juliet has. And I sent you all an email too, to that effect.
Jim Ligon, 14001 Lebanon Road. I had speak to you earlier about the McCluskey Pile property and where you're rezoning, and I understand the request to rezone to the commercial retail center on the front, but I really have concerns of going from RS 40 to RS 15 on property that has, at this point, has no septic to the property, has a creek down the side. And obviously, from my standpoint of farming next to it, I'm concerned about this increased housing in a very condensed area, the effect it'll have to my farming operation. And my family's been farming there for 230 years. So I think we've been there first. So I'd like to be able to continue to do that. And I really am concerned about it going from R40 to R15. Thank you.
My name's Nick Polk, and I live at 414 Silver Springs Lane, Mount Juliet. And just want to thank you guys for your public service and opportunity to speak. The comments that I'm submitting today are regarding the proposed term limits for elected city officials by Commissioner Scott Hefner. I would just like to voice my support for the 2 consecutive 4-year term limits of city officials. Term limits are a great accountability tool in the balance of our democracy, local and federal. They're part of our Constitution, have been a part of the American conversation since the founding of the United States. Reasonable term limits set proper time constraints for public officials and allow opportunities for the rest of the citizens of Mount Juliet to bring in new ideas, work with tradition, and develop our city in their particular areas of service. We're a city of neighbors, and I believe that this proposal will keep us headed in the right direction to further and grow that reality. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? All right, seeing none, we will close citizen comments and move to commissioner reports. Vice Mayor Justice.
Very briefly, want to welcome Mayor Shea, by the way. Thank you for being up here today. The other thing I would tell you is that starting at 11 o'clock on Saturday, there will be a program, an event. We're going to have bounce houses for the kids, and that will be at Charlie Daniels Park. And it is a Celebrate Mount Juliet event that we have every now and then. We weren't able to have it last year because COVID wasn't invited, but decided wanted to show up anyway. This year we're not worried about COVID. This year we're actually going to celebrate Mount Juliet, and we're going to celebrate our youth sports programs that we've got. Our city and this commission, thank you. It's something I've been trying to get done for many, many years. For what most of you don't know, that our youth sports programs are run by 501c3 nonprofit organizations. They are not city organizations. In most cities throughout our country, most cities actually do pay for the youth sports. They fund them on a regular basis. The city of Mount Juliet has never done that because in our city, the youth sports organizations created themselves before the city ever existed. And we continue. I'm on the board of directors for the baseball and have been involved in the baseball since 1968 when I started playing down there. And the football program and the basketball program and now the soccer program, those programs are self-funded. They're self-run. They're run by volunteers. They're not run by people who are being paid. So our city and this commission has actually stepped up for the first time in the history of the city of Mount Juliet and actually provided a large portion of the funding, and per head, per child is the way that the formula worked out to help offset some of the expenses that all these youth sports organizations incur. On Saturday, starting at 11 o'clock, we're going to celebrate that. And I would like to also at the same time let you know that we'll be celebrating the history that was made here with this new commission, and that actually is going to is game changing for our youth sports programs. You'll see the programs get better than what they already are. So come down Saturday starting at 11 o'clock. There'll be live music starting at 12 o'clock. And then the presentation of the funds to the youth sports programs will be at about 2:15 to 2:30, somewhere in that area. Please come down there and enjoy it. Like I said, the bounce houses, we've got the splash pad. We've got all kinds of wonderful things that go on at Charlie Daniels Park, which is in my district, by the way. So I kind of like it. So come down and enjoy, and look forward to seeing everybody down there.
All right. Thank you, sir. Commissioner Trevette.
Well, you stole a little bit of my thunder there. So I know, but I'm also the commissioner over Park, so it's okay. Teamwork. Well, first of all, Mayor, thank you for being here today, sir. Hopefully everything works out for you today and be a smooth transition from the old mayor to the new mayor.
It's term limits.
Oh, oh, I love it. Well, I guess I better get into it. Well, thank you, neighbors and friends, for coming here tonight. This has been a great turnout. So, thank everybody for being here. There's going to be a lot of thanking from me this week because, again, there's been a lot that happened in my district. And also the fact that we've had a lot going on the last 2 weeks with, this past Independence Day. We were able to celebrate it. Mount Juliet was blessed to have 2 fireworks shows. So hopefully everybody was able to make it to one of them. My family and I and some friends and neighbors, we were able to head over to, a church over on Tate Lane and was able to enjoy the fireworks view from there with minimal traffic. So great job there to everyone that, participated and make sure that that event was safe. The second thing I'd like to mention when it comes to safety, we actually had a volunteer that was involved in an accident over on the Interstate 40. And luckily, he's okay with just a little bit of visiting the hospital, make sure he's up and running. But one thing I would like to highlight, which is we have so many distractions. And my background is safety and operations, and I'm very passionate about safety, and I'm even guilty of it when it comes to distractions. So when you get behind that wheel of a 2,000 to 3,000 pound vehicle, take it seriously. There's nothing more important than what's in front of you when you're speeding 35, 40, whatever the speed limit is. So just take that seriously. I mean, there's no call that's more important than what's in front of you. Also with safety, I'd like to tie into an incident that we had over in Hickory Hills last week after the 4th of July event. We had a family that lost everything, and it's still under investigation, whether if it was based off of a firework or just whatever it is. But what it boils down to is that our community pulled together and helped this family out. And there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes. But it just amazes me that through all the stuff that we see on the media, day in, day out, that is so negative about how the United States is, our community, our city, our state is just phenomenal. I mean, very patriotic, but also very neighborly. So I'd like to thank the families, but then also at the same time, appreciate everything that Hickory Hills and Willoughby Station pulled together for, to kind of open up and just drop off things for this family. I'd also like to thank Vintage Station, Matt Gardner and Brian, I hope I pronounced it correctly, Geiser, and also his partners. They decided to kind of open up some doors for the new Vintage Station for this family to be able to stay at with no strings attached for a little bit of time there. Great job. And then they were also brought in with Commissioner Scott Hefner. So not to get into too much detail about how that all worked out, but it just, to me, amazes me how blessed we are to live in a community that there's so many little moving parts behind the scenes that we take for granted each and every day. From the fire department to the police department that showed up, to even the young man that even was beating on the doors for however long, and still calling 911 to be able to get to make sure that family's out of that that house, even though she wasn't there, she was out of town. But still, the fact that a citizen, a young man, 17 years old, just so happened to be driving by and start pounding on the door. So, so looking forward to hopefully we can do something for him in the next up and coming meeting. So that's gonna be something that that I look forward to helping out with. The last thing, which would be, sorry, I'm just going down my notes here. There's so many things in here I just didn't want to miss. But let's see here. I guess that concludes my report. Thank you, Mayor. Sorry about that.
Well, thank you, sir. Commissioner Scott Hefner.
Thank you, Mayor, and welcome, Mayor Shea. Doing an excellent job, by the way. I'm going to be brief. Commissioner Trevette's already thanked Imagine One, but I just want to reiterate one quick thing. I mean, this community steps up time and time and time again, and I've seen it. I've been here since '07. This was no different. I'm a tenant. Imagine One is the developer and owner of Vintage Station North. I made literally one phone call, and within 30 seconds, he said, we'll cover them. Whatever they need, we'll take care of them. So I want to thank again, I want to reiterate Matt Gardner, Imagine One, who's the first phone call I made, and then he put me in touch with Brian Huser. So thank you both. And for the partners that own Imagine One, can't thank you guys enough. It turned out, I think, in a very good way for Stephanie. Want to thank Mount Juliet Police Department again and fire. It was a pretty hectic couple of weeks with the house fire, and we had a natural gas line break in Kelsey Glen. Come to find out that was not neglect as I originally thought. So I was glad I got to drive over there on scene and got the facts related to that. But again, quick response, got everybody out of their house within the danger area. So I think it was affected maybe 70 people. I could be off on that number, but again, can't thank you guys enough. Appreciate everything that both PD and Mount Juliet Fire do for our community. Do want to end on one thing. It was brought to my attention by a friend of mine, a citizen of Mount Juliet, actually lives, Bill, in your district. I'm going to be doing a budget amendment at the next BOC. This gentleman, David Usser, he reached out to me to get a contact over at Under Armour. He told me he needed some uniforms. He is trying to start the Mount Juliet Christian Academy sports program. They were hit by the tornado a year and a half ago, and they still have not been able to build back. They had over $2.5 million worth of damage that was done to their athletic facility, most of which was scoreboards, equipment, uniforms. The facilities themselves were damaged, and unfortunately, only $300,000 was covered by insurance. So I'm going to be looking to put a budget amendment in for $10,000 at the next BOC meeting. I hope I can get the support from the other commissioners on that. And with that said, I conclude my report. Thank you to all the citizens that came out tonight. It's good to see all the seats filled up. It's probably the first time in, I don't know, many months that I've seen this many folks come out. So
For the new mayor.
For the new mayor. So you're welcome to come back anytime.
We need the support.
Thank you, Commissioner. District 4, Commissioner Mullally.
Thank you. First of all, thank you, Mayor Shade, for leading us tonight. You're doing an awesome job. It's an honor to have you here. There's a donation of a little free library from a constituent in District 4. They hired it's Tony and Laura Dillon. They hired Bryce Hawk to custom make a little free library. And it's the cutest thing. It's shaped like a schoolhouse, and it has a little bell at the top. And she wanted it close to her house because she's going to maintain it. But they donated it to the city. And so we met Rocky out there, and they put it in the ground. Thank you, Rocky, and your team. So it's there. Last Friday, when she first put the books in it, it was stocked with children's, young adults, and adults. I don't know what's in it now because people are using it. So feel free. It's at the Southeast Springdale at the South Bark Park. It's at the Bark Park on Springdale. So check it out. It's a generous donation, and I want to thank them very, very, very much for doing that. And please feel free to check out a book and leave one that you think others might enjoy as well. Chief Luffman, Deputy Chief Edwards, and I met with Mayor Hutto today about WEMA. Even though much didn't come from the meeting, he did agree to come to a public work session. So we're trying to work out a schedule. July's out. I submitted 3 dates in August for him. So we're just waiting to hear back so we can hopefully get that schedule. So I'll keep you posted when that happens. And a reminder, tomorrow night at 6:30, we have a virtual public meeting regarding the widening project on South Mount Juliet Road in Central Pike. It is virtual. It would not be here. I have the information to sign on. So please, if you don't have that already, I already sent it out. But if you didn't get it, please let me know, and I'll be glad to send you the link again so that you can sign on virtually. It's to gather public input on the South Mount Juliet Road widening project, which goes a little south of Central Pike, and it also includes a portion of Central Pike on the east side and west side. And I also have some additional maps, some detailed maps I'm going to be sending out later tonight for those of you who subscribe to email. And if you don't, I would suggest you do that. Go to my website, jennifermullally.com, to sign up for emails, and you get my monthly newsletter as well as periodic updates and very important notices. So let me know if you didn't get the link to sign on virtually tomorrow night, and I will send you the information. And that completes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner. Well, I'll add thank you to all the departments that have worked so hard, our police, our fire over the last few weeks. Also saw a wonderful fireworks show. And, when it comes to our city services, I mean, I'm very happy to live into a city where you don't go to bed the next day and wonder if, you're going to have those services available. And we see stories around the country where things aren't always available. But I tell you, in the city of Mount Juliet, these departments, they're running like clockwork. And I'm proud to see that, and I'm proud to see those services offered for our citizens here. Thankful to call Mount Juliet home. We just had several stories up here of wonderful things that have taken place and make this city what it is and make the city this wonderful place to call home. But I want to take just a moment and explain our guest mayor up here for the night. Mayor Shade, I understand you're known as the mayor of Mount Juliet Middle School, and also come to understand that, you've been quite an inspiration to a lot of people there. You got a lot of people that look up to you, and I've had the wonderful opportunity to meet some of your family members here tonight. And I just want to thank you for what you do and with the middle school. And I know you got a lot of friends that are cheering for you, and we're happy to have you up here. So we also have prepared, we have a proclamation here for you. And I'll read this, and it says, it's the bottom line. It says, therefore, I, James Maness, Mayor of Mount Juliet, Tennessee, along with my fellow commissioners, do hereby proclaim Monday, July 12th, 2021, as Alden Shade Day in the city of Mount Juliet, and encourage all citizens to share in his energy, his positive attitude, and his passion for life. So congratulations. We have this proclamation for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Hold down. Hold down. I got one more thing for you. We don't give away keys to the city here because it's a welcoming city, and most of the doors are unlocked. So we do have this coin for you here as just a token of our appreciation for what you do and the inspiration that you've been to so many. So thank you, sir. You have a speech for anybody prepared?
No.
No speech. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And with that, I'll recognize our city manager for his comments.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Board of Commissioners, and thank you, citizens and those watching home that weren't able to be here tonight for participating in our meetings. I think what you've seen tonight is a perfect example of what makes Mount Juliet so special. I mean, to have such great leadership, starts great constituents, Mayor, that you've got some of your constituents with you tonight. They follow him literally in droves. No matter where he goes, they're there. I mean, he's basically, that's pretty awesome. But I have one more thing for him from the staff and from the city. And this is actually our first original seal that was incorporated in 1972. It was fashioned basically by the city and its elected leadership at the time. It's changed since then, but we felt it appropriate that if the mayor out in town, natural disasters, things of that nature, maybe even inclement weather, that he'd have an official cap to wear, to sport around so everybody knows who he is, even when he's incognito. But Mayor, we want to thank you a whole lot for your leadership and for everything you're doing out in the community. And we'd also like to thank your constituents for the love and admiration that they have for you and everything that you do, and just tell you we're proud of you. And we stand ready and prepared to serve alongside of you for many, many years to come. You just keep up the good work. And Mayor, I know he's got lots of duties and activities, so I told him and his constituents if they wanted to, they could stay for the meeting, but if they wanted to head out to some other activities, they're welcome to do that as well. But we really do appreciate you all. So thank y'all so much. Thank you.
Yeah, we understand if you have a ribbon cutting to get to.
And Mayor, the other thing is too, I'd like to thank everybody, the police department staff, public works, parks, you name it, and our elected body. A lot of things were mentioned tonight by our elected body about the services, especially in police and fire and things of that nature. I want it to be known that would not be possible without great leadership from our elected body and the support of the citizens that makes it all happen and makes it possible. So thank you for what you're doing, not only for the city services, but for the citizens out there that we so proudly serve. Thank you so much. And I have one other young lady to recognize, and I'm gonna get her to come up to the mic over at the podium, probably embarrass her, but she helped all day today. We've got another local citizen that will be a senior at Wilson Central High School next year. Her name is Miss Lola Mcguire. She spent the day with us today here at City Hall, and in particular, job shadowing Miss Dana, our finance director. Very bright young lady. We had the opportunity to fellowship with her at lunch as well, and just a precious young lady. We'd like to appreciate her parents for doing such a great job. She came highly recommended. We actually had folks that sent letters, phone calls, things of that nature, and said she'd like to job shadow with us. So Miss Lola, we're very proud of you. We know you have such a bright future. She's got admiration, the things she's looking forward to doing at college and things of that nature. We talked about that a little bit today. So I just want to tell you thank you for being here, and see if you wanted to say a little bit yourself about your experience and what you're looking forward to, because this young lady is a future leader. We can assure you of that.
Well, I just wanted to thank you for recognizing me. I really appreciate it, and I want to thank you for having me today. Yeah, I am just really thankful for this opportunity, and I want to be able to be a leader and make an impact in the world. And so I'm just really thankful that all of you gave me the opportunity to come today and invited me to this meeting. And thank you everyone else for coming also. That way we're not all alone, or I wasn't sitting out there alone, because I kind of was afraid I was going to. So just thank you for this opportunity, and I really appreciate everything that you all did for me today.
Thank you, Miss Lola.
Thank you.
And Mayor, I hope we don't lose these kind of feelings, because these are kind of things that makes you feel good about what you're doing. And we are extremely blessed to live in what I feel like is the most patriotic city on the face of the planet. So thank you all for what you do. And Mayor, that concludes my report.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right. With that, we'll move into the business portion of the meeting. Our first item on the agenda is our unfinished business consent items, and I will read those into the record. 8.1, an ordinance of the City of Mount Juliet to amend the Mount Juliet City Code, Article 3, Public Nuisance, Section 1463, definitions, section 1465, summary abatement, section 466, abatement and order of case, notices, etc., section 1470, notice of assessment, appeal charges, and section 1472, overhead charge, civil penalties. Item 8.2, an ordinance of the City of Mount Juliet to amend the Mount Juliet Code, section 1622, anti-noise regulations, 7, part B. Item 8.3, an ordinance of the City of Mount Juliet to amend the Mount Juliet City Code, Chapter 4, alcoholic beverage, section 455, 3, permits, entertainment, and amusement services permits, section 462, on-premise consumption beer permit, issuance requirements, section 467, suspension and revocation of permit authority. 8.4, an ordinance of the City of Mount Juliet to amend the Mount Juliet City Code, Chapter 4, beverages, section 458, same fee, annual tax, change in management, and 480, fee and taxes applications. Item number 8.5, an ordinance to amend the tax rate for the 2022 fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022. 8.6, an ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2021 budget ordinance 2021-19 to increase the funds for community grants. These 6 items are now on for the record. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Have
Second.
a motion and a second. Any discussion, any comments? I'll add this. I'm assuming these items are all going to pass. And with this passing, your property tax rate is going to be reduced to 11 cents. So I think that's a noteworthy item to point out. All in favor? Hold on, just all right, you're on.
Let me get that. It's about the football. Call it up here.
Commissioner, is this a question about the allocation or a question about the budget amendment?
Yeah, the spreadsheet for the grants.
I believe that's a resolution found under new business. Yeah, 11.3.
Okay, so ask it then.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're just on the dollar amount for the
All right.
budget amendment.
Got it.
Okay. Actually, there was some confusion, Mayor.
Vice Mayor? Yes, sir.
There was some confusion, and I think I may have given some wrong information to, and when Commissioner Hefner called me and asked me about that. But given that this grant amount, and I'm asking actually for a little guidance here, maybe from our Mr. Marchetti, the grant amount that we've got in the budget right now is set at, and I'm not even sure the number, without being right here in front of me, but that amount, if we wanted to increase that amount, we could increase that by 10,000 on a one-time grant and just amend it by that amount, and it would still carry over without us having to go through a second reading or another reading, correct?
Be amending the budget.
Correct. We're amending the budget and we're
At 62 now, correct?
So is a question to increase the community grants from 68,
To 78?
78.50? The budget amendments for $68,050. So
right
I assume
increasing
you're-
the overall amount. And
I
so
assume you're bringing this in with the 10,000 to make it.
right. I had told him that I didn't feel comfortable doing that originally because I did exactly what Commissioner Mullally was talking about doing, because I had the allocations in one spot and the actual budget amendment in another spot. And so, so I did what you did, was looking at the wrong location. So, I mean, if we could do that by 10,000, we could go ahead and do this tonight by 10,000, but that would only be a one time.
Yeah, but this is just a one-time budget amendment. So
So
is that your motion?
yes, that would be my motion. Well, actually, the motion would be at this point to take it out of the consent agenda and put it on the,
We can read that one separately then.
okay.
If there's no objection then to removing the grants.
I apologize to
8.6.
Commissioner Hefner also for getting him the wrong information on that.
There any objections to removing that from consent? All right. Okay, then we have the items 8.1 through 8.5 on the table under the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous. And then we will read item 8.6, an ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2021 budget ordinance 2021-19 to increase funding for community grants. Is there a motion? All right, we got a motion and a second by Commissioner Hefner. All right. Vice Mayor, did you have an amendment?
The amendment would be that we increase this amount by $10,000.
Okay, and is there a second on that?
Second.
All right, we have a second by Commissioner Hefner, and Commissioner Mullally is asking to be recognized.
I'm not saying I'm against it. I just have a question. For example, soccer, they didn't submit the request prior to the budget cycle. So they didn't get a grant. And so, and then I've had 2 or 3 other nonprofits ask me that as well. And I told them they needed to submit that before the budget cycle next year to make sure they get it in before the workshops. I suggested April 1st. So I would just like to hear your response on that.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, ma'am. I asked the same question. The difference between the ones that also asked me the same questions they asked you is that this event and these uniforms, this $10,000 that we're talking about will go to, and we've done this on numerous occasions for others that were hit by the tornado. And that's exactly what this is. This is in response to the tornado that hit. It actually probably is a year late. This probably, I wanted to, the way you said it a while ago, that he wanted to start the football and the sports programs at the school. This isn't starting them. This is restarting because they were wiped out by the tornado. They were ones that they've been trying to put everything back together, and they are just now able to come to us, and through Mr. Usry to Commissioner Hefner. They actually wasn't even a request by them until they found out that this was something we've participated in the past and giving money to others in light of the tornado. So this is going to put them back a little closer to where they were prior to the tornado hitting them back last year. So that's the difference between this particular piece and the others that have asked, probably you and I and the others as well, about coming in late. So,
Commissioner Hefner?
I just want to reiterate what Vice Mayor mentioned. David Usry reached out to me as a friend, asked if I had any contacts over at Under Armour. And of course, I'm curious why he's asking that question. So that's when I heard the story. No different than me staring at a baseball field. They got wiped out by a flood. I came to this commission and I asked for a budget amendment. I felt bad. I feel bad for these kids. And that's why I'm doing it. That's why I'm asking. I appreciate the consideration.
All right. Commissioner Trett?
Thank you, Mayor. Is that better? Thank you. Well, thank you, Mayor. Before the meeting, I actually was looking at amending because I did overlook the budget at the last reading, which showed that we were missing $2,800 from previous grants that were put out there. And it was actually broke down where, again, we were looking at some different nonprofits where they were just asking for a simple $750 and we still cut them at $50. Or we were looking at $3,500 and we still cut them back to $1,250. And I think that's what was my discussion with Commissioner Mullally. It was a whopping $2,800 is what we took away in order to help offset some of these new nonprofit organizations that came in. I was kind of disappointed because I was going to look at what our options were to take away from some of these other organizations, but after some further discussion with our city's finance team, I decided to look at this other option here, which would just go ahead and amend the amendment outside of the 10,000, but also increase it to the 2,800 so the city can give back to the nonprofit organizations of what we're doing last year to match what we're going to be giving this year.
So your amendment is to
To
change
increase.
to 12,800.
That is correct, Mayor.
Is there a second? All right, we have a second. It's on the floor. Any other questions or comments?
Football. So should I, I'll wait again at resolution.
12,800. So it was a 10,000 plus an additional $2,800 just to mirror what we had already given. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So your questions about the allocation. Okay. All right. Just so everybody's clear, this is where we budget the money that we give away. So, all right. All in favor of the amendment as amended to amend the amount by 12,800 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. So we're back on to the ordinance as once amended. All right, any other questions or comments, discussion on those? All right, all in favor of the ordinance as once amended signify by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? That passes unanimous again. Okay. Now we'll move into our unfinished business. Item 9.1, an ordinance to rezone property known as the Powell McCluskey property, map 53, parcel 130.02 and 130.03 from single-family residential to commercial retail center, CRC, and single-family residential, RS15. Is there a motion? I'll make a motion. Is there a second? All right, the item dies for lack of second. The next item on the agenda is 9.2, an ordinance to rezone from commercial retail CRC to commercial retail center planned unit development CRC PUD and adopt a preliminary master development plan for Golden Bear Commercial being located at 10,000 Lebanon Road, map 54, parcel 97 in the city of Mount Juliet, Wilson County, Tennessee. I'll make a motion. Is there a second? All right, the item's on the table. We do have a request from the applicant for deferral. I'll go ahead and make that motion that we defer for one meeting. Second. All right, there's a second. Any discussion on the advisement of deferral?
The deferral comes.
Yes, sir.
The deferral comes as a result of a meeting that we had at Public Works, myself and Mr. Barlow, regarding a turn lane coming off of Lebanon Road, which would be a sweeping turn lane as opposed to just stop and turn onto Golden Bear. And so there was one of the gentlemen that was involved in the decision making that is not in town and has not had an opportunity to look at what we're asking them to do. So that's the reason for them to.
Well, I'm happy to let somebody take all the time they need to get it right.
That's right.
All right. All in favor of deferral signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. The item is deferred for one meeting. Next item is 9.3, an ordinance to amend Part B of the Unified Development Code of the City of Mount Juliet, known as Zoning Regulations Ordinance 2001-29, adopted October 8, 2001, as amended by amending Article 8, Overlay Districts, Section 8, 2071, minimum size residential PUD planned unit development districts by adding and amending the section to include a 10-acre minimum gross area requirement for RM8 residential planned unit development. Is there a motion? We have a motion.
Second.
And we have a second. The item's on the table. Yes, sir, Vice Mayor.
I think, and having a conversation with Mr. Hefner, Commissioner Hefner, he and I had talked about this. It's going to be deferred tonight. We're going to ask for a deferral on it. But I do want to make a comment before it gets to that point so that everybody understands that there's an educational process that you will go through. And it's over a period of time that you learn this stuff. First of all, up until October of 2020, there was no restriction whatsoever. You could put, if the planning commission allowed it, then you could put, townhomes or apartments on 3 acres. You could put it on 7 acres. You could put it on 12 acres. There was no restriction until October of 2020. Then the restriction was put in that it would be on 20 acres. And the conversation that we had at that point was that we would look at a later time, lowering that for townhomes, but leaving it at 20 acres for apartments. That was the conversation. We do know that you cannot restrict, and Mr. Marchetti, if I'm saying this wrong, please correct me, but you cannot go in and under the HUD guidelines say, okay, multifamily does not include apartments. So if somebody wanted to build apartments on less than 20 acres, based on if this were to have passed tonight, then they would be able to. Now, the question is, would they be able to afford to? And it becomes a business model at that point. And there are thousands of people that develop, and you cannot get enough apartments on a piece of property that is under 20 acres to make it profitable for these people who really want the big bang for their buck. We know this. We've known it for a long time. There's a reason for this. There's a reason that planning, comes in and supports us and tells us that this is not a bad thing to do. But unfortunately, people who don't understand the business side of this decide to make it a public spectacle and go out and create the whole world's on fire. And we've only got a thimble full of water. And when you go out and you jack people's emotions up and create this kind of crap, all it does is it sets the world on fire. It is needless. It is really bad for our city to do that. Put the facts out there and let people decide what's going on based on the facts, not based on what you want the facts to be. So again, I'm a little aggravated about this because I see politics and so much that has been discussed on social media, specifically Unhip Mount Juliet, and people spout the facts off as if they are facts, when in truth, there's nothing factual about them. It just happens to be somebody's opinion. And when we get somebody on the city commission who actually uses that tact, it's not only unfortunate, it's sad, and it's aggravating. Mayor?
All right. Any other discussion? Commissioner Mullally.
Well, I was here last October and I voted for the 20-acre minimum. I think it's a good policy and I intend on standing by it. I have maps prepared if they were going to proceed with this to show you some good information. But obviously they're going to motion for deferral. So that's good. I'll vote for that. The maps indicate 61 tracts that are 10 plus acres all across the city that potentially would be rezoned if the landowner decides to sell and wanted to develop. It's all up to the landowner. So that's kind of where it starts. And if you think educating the public and letting them know what's on the table, the loopholes, the potential where this could lead down the road, if you think that's bad, then that's an opinion. So I want you to know what's on the table, and I want you to know what's at stake going forward. I want to educate you, I want to inform you, and I want to engage you in your city. So I see nothing wrong with that. So that's all I had to say. And so I will support the deferral.
Thank you, Commissioner. Not heard a deferral yet, but Commissioner Hefner.
I think there's a lot of education that needs to take place here, not just with the citizens, but also members of this board, this commission. So I am going to request a deferral. to the second meeting in January to allow time for me to set up a workshop, roundtable, whatever it is, to educate the public and the board on RM8, 10 acres, and what that actually means, facts, not fiction. So with that, I move to defer until the second meeting of January 2021.
Okay, I heard a deferral for January 24th, 2022. Any discussion upon the advisement of deferral? All right, all in favor of deferring until January 24th, 2022, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That item is deferred for several months. I won't do the math, but. It does feel strange talking about 2022. Yes, it will. Yes, ma'am. January 24th, 2022. Next item is an item, let's see, it's 9.4, an ordinance authorizing the reestablishment of the building exemption jurisdiction fee in the Emergency and Community Services Fund of $30,000 for each story above 3 stories.
Motion. Second.
I have a motion second. The item's on the floor.
Yeah,
Good.
I'd like to request, speaking of deferrals, an indefinite deferral on this matter. I thought it was a necessary move, but it's not for housekeeping.
Right.
So referral, indefinite deferral.
I'll make that motion to defer indefinitely. And there's a second. That's on the floor. Is there any discussion on the advisement of deferral indefinitely on this item?
I just have a question.
Commissioner Trivett?
So just for the citizens, city manager, can you go into a little bit of detail what this is referring to?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, in years past, when we first started the fire department, before we started getting the multi-story buildings, anything over that, we were adding a $30,000 fee that would go specifically to the fire department. We stopped doing that, and so therefore it's no longer necessary. Plus, too, the way that they fight fires for multi-story buildings is internally, which I've learned from our fire chief since then. So it was something I thought was needed to be cleaned up housekeeping wise, and it wasn't. So it was an unnecessary sponsorship to begin with.
Thank you,
So
sir.
I hope that makes a little bit of sense.
Yep.
It's all funded now through the general fund. And of course, we have the necessary equipment on hand now that we needed then that we don't need now.
Thank you, city manager.
All right. All in favor of indefinite deferral, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Deferred indefinitely. Next item on the agenda is 9.5. It's an ordinance to amend the final master development plan for Silver Springs Plan Unit Development to include 4 additional single-family building lots in Phase 7 being located on Karen Drive, map 54, parcel 42.01 in the city of Mount Juliet, Wilson County, Tennessee. I'll make a motion for that. A second. It is on the floor. Any discussion or questions about these? She is. Would you like to hear from our planning director?
It's been a long time.
It has been. It's been a couple of weeks.
Uh-huh.
Thank you. I worked really hard on it. Did you have a specific question?
No, I just want to understand what's driving the request.
Sure.
to
They,
modify
the
HUD.
original engineering firm identified a more expansive wetlands area for this area. And during a field survey, they realized that it was not as expansive as originally thought of, and that they could get 4 additional lots out of the area. And so that's what they've done. It's
Okay.
for 4 additional lots for Phase 7, which is the last phase of Silver Springs.
What's the total?
204 if approved tonight.
Okay.
So they're still within their density
Yeah.
requirements. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Vice Mayor, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Actually, having fought several battles beside Commissioner Hefner in the Kelsey Glen area over there, where there were obviously some engineering mistakes that took place, many, many years ago. I want to avoid that happening again. So what measures have been taken stormwater wise through Public Works to make sure that this is not going to be another
Correct. Those reports have been sent to Public Works. I believe Andy's here if he would like to speak to those.
Please.
Thank you. So for any additional, so with the 4 lots, that would be a little bit of additional impervious area. My understanding, I believe the infrastructure itself, I think the roadway infrastructure doesn't really change that much. But there is a little bit of an additional impervious area that has to be accounted for. Basically, the stormwater regulations still apply. Anything that they have to add cannot exceed pre-development flows out there. And so while this would be going there, we still have to honor any wetland areas plus buffers. So every wetland out there has a buffer that has to be maintained as well. So not only are we making sure that they adhere to the stormwater requirements, but there's also the TDEC requirements as
That's
far
what
as wetlands.
I was going to ask. I know that was it 30 foot.
That's correct, I believe. Mike, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I know that. I know we don't know anything that happened in Kelsey Glen. That was a
Right.
Mongolian mess, is what that was. But I just want to make sure, because when we're talking about adding 4 lots, I'm assuming that those 4 lots would be in an area close to where those wetlands were originally identified.
That's correct. Yes.
So does that mean that there is some water, but not enough to declare it a wetland, or does that mean that there is no wetland area right there?
Yeah, it just wasn't. A lot of times when engineering firms or surveyors go in, they'll identify an area. They'll usually say this is at least this area. They'll go back in, have a more formal determination done later with an environmental professional, and they'll get you the actual limits. It's a little bit more of a conservative approach to assume it's bigger than it is. It's much better. The fact that it was actually smaller than they originally thought is just useful land for them.
I'm good, Mary. Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, all in favor of the item, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous. Last item on unfinished is 9.6, an ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2022 budget ordinance 2021-19 to roll over funds for police vehicles. I'll make a motion for this item, and we have a second. We also have a request, I think, to amend the transportation equipment item by $500 from what was passed on first reading. I'll make that motion at this point to capture that $500. Is there a second? All right, that's a second. All right. And our finance director has some words of wisdom.
I don't know about that. There was also some additional vehicle equipment that the police department had ordered, but unfortunately, time delays, they could not get it in time. So that vehicle equipment line needs to change to $24,600. So you'd have $37,400 for the transportation equipment and $24,600 for the vehicle equipment. And again, this isn't new money. This is money that they were not able to spend last year because of supply delays.
I think you seconded that. Just match what's presented at the table, if you're okay with that.
I'm okay with it.
So that's transportation equipment, 37.4, vehicle equipment, 24.6.
Yes.
And we are talking thousands. All right. Any questions, concerns, debate on the amendment? All right. All in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. That passes unanimous. Back on to the ordinance as once amended. Questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Again, passes unanimously. All right. At this point, we'll move to our new business items. Our first item is 11.1, an ordinance to amend the Mount Juliet City Charter to place a question before the voters of the City of Mount Juliet concerning term limits and the election of the mayor, commissioners of the City of Mount Juliet, and adding a new section 620.111, term limits. Motion, is there a second? All right, that dies for lack of a second. The next item on the agenda is Resolution 11.2, a resolution to the Tennessee General Assembly requesting legislation to address issues regarding blasting. Have a motion? Do we have a second? Okay, no second on 11.2. 11.3, a resolution approving grants by the city of Mount Juliet as previously budgeted in the 2021-2022 budget ordinance, Ordinance 2021-19. Is there a motion?
Motion.
I'll second that. I think it's important that I read the correct ordinance number into the record that we're amending. All right, any discussion on this? It's on the floor. Commissioner Mullally.
Okay, I had a question about football.
Love it.
All right. I see baseball, what was requested was 20,000 each. So if you forget what was requested, are the numbers here off to the right, the 61,000 and the 18,000, is that strictly the 25, that's strictly that? And nothing else?
No, it's nothing else. Those numbers were gotten from the individual programs as to what their head count was.
Mm-hmm.
That's where those numbers come from.
Okay. Okay, that was all.
Yes, thank you. So when I was looking at this initially, I know we were looking at, let me make sure I get my numbers out correctly. Because the $2,800, when I was referring to earlier that we increased, was also to help offset those nonprofit organizations that were also supplying we were also helping them out, from last year and then from the year before that, when it comes to everything that the city had gone through and also other agencies when it came to the COVID. Obviously, COVID's been an excuse for a lot of folks, and money is, these folks tend to look forward to every penny that they can get. My frustration was we had looked at, I had overlooked the actual numbers on the line item. And there's two things that I would like to make sure that everyone understands, because there has been a lot of discussion for the $25 per student participant, excuse me. And when that came out there, obviously, like we're looking at numbers from different agencies that were asking for anywhere between 20,000. And past years, they may have gotten 15. And then, of course, we increased that number to 61,475. And my biggest concern was making sure that our citizens understood that that was the $25 per head increase. One thing that I was frustrated, which was the breakdown that we had nickel-dimed is what I'm going to consider it to be for some of these other nonprofit organizations to take away from theirs, when in past that we would go ahead and increase $41,475 to softball improvement and baseball improvements. My initial thought was to go ahead and take away from that organization the $2,800, but luckily the board was able to vote tonight to increase that amount and reallocate it. So I would like to thank the board for everyone's support tonight that increased that. If not, that was going to be my next step, which was to remove the $2,800 to help reallocate that to these other organizations. So I just wanted to make sure that was noted, those two line items, that of the $25 per student or per head count, that's where the increase came from. And also that the additional $2,800, which I was definitely looking out for these four other agencies, a nonprofit. I feel that we need to make sure that we are on an even playing field, that we don't look at just one organization over another. I look at every single one of us as being some parts of this community. So thank you, nonprofit organizations, for what you guys have done and continue to do for our city. That's all I have, Mayor.
Commissioner, I'll ask, do you have a motion perhaps for where that 2,800 should be allocated?
Yes, those four will be reallocated to, so my motion will be to increase Cheris Health Center, an increase of 1,250. Empower Me Day Camp, which will be an increase of 500. The Leadership Wilson Youth Program, increase of 50. And is it Prospects cut? Excuse me, it was just Prospect on my email to increase $1,000 for a total of 2,800.
Okay, so that would be line number 760, increased by 1,000. Let's see, I've got to chase these down. Leadership Will, 744, $50. Empower Me, which is line 724 by 500. And line 752 increased by 1,250.
Thank you, Mayor.
I'll second yours. All right, so that's on the floor.
Yep.
So we got that motion
Thank you.
on the floor, and we recognize Commissioner Hefner.
Motion to amend to add Mount Juliet Christian Academy for $10,000.
All right. All right, we got a second over here.
I'd like to clarify that as being I'm sorry.
Vice Mayor, go ahead.
That being a one-time. That's correct. One-time donation to them.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion on the floor for $2,800. I read the full breakdown for that. $10,000 from Mount Juliet Christian Academy, a one-time donation. So that should be $12,800, increasing the total on that. Is there any other questions, comments, or discussion on that?
Not on that in particular, but I would like to point some things out.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Let's vote on this one, and
Gotcha.
I'll give you the floor after that, unless somebody's got some discussion on these items. So that's the as amended and the amendment to the amendment for $12,800. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we're back to the ordinance, or excuse me, resolution as amended, and recognize Vice Mayor.
Okay. I would want to point out that there's a process that we go through and have gone through for quite some time. This is a resolution as opposed to a budget ordinance. This is a resolution saying where we're going to send the budgeted money that went through as an ordinance. When we have an amount of money, in this case, it was $111,575. You'll notice that was the amount of money in 19, and that was the amount of money in 20. And that was actually the amount of money originally that was put in for 21 as well. That amount, when it is budgeted, is sent out, and we take we prioritize. We prioritize those that are in the city. We prioritize those that provide a service to those in the city. And then if there's a 501c3 that actually provides a service to the county and has some to the city, then we put that in there. But they are not as high priority as someone who is actually in the city limits providing a service directly to the city. And you've heard this come out of my mouth numerous times. Mount Juliet baseball and softball, the Mount Juliet football and youth cheerleading, youth football and cheerleading program, the WWBA, those three organizations they are the bedrock. They are the ones who started the youth sports programs as a 501c3, and they actually take care of and have taken care of for a long time the city's youth sports needs, whereas most cities have that provided to them through their property tax. Our city, we decided that we didn't think it was a good idea. And anything that we can get out of the hands of government and into the hands of the private sector is always a good idea. And so that was the reason that we allowed the 501c3s to continue to operate as they have in such a successful manner and just help them out financially. Over the years, I have said numerous times, probably since about 1997, when I was chairman of the Parks Board, I said then that we did not do enough for the youth sports programs, and I have preached that religiously for the many years. Now, if you look at the number of people being, for instance, 2,600 that the football or baseball services, the kids, then you add a couple of parents to that number, you're looking at about 7,000 people in a year that are serviced by the baseball. And it is one of the largest organizations in the Southeast United States. Now we've got the city that has actually stepped up and done such a good job of helping offset some of the cost. So I'm very proud of that to happen. But I want you to understand that there was prioritized. It was prioritized as to who got what. And, you know, when all this is put down here, when I presented this, I put that down and that put that priority in there, knowing that we had a finite amount of money. And I hope, by the way, that we continue to do what we do for the youth sports programs. But I don't think that next year we need to go through this process and start increasing the grants so that we start. I mean, there has to be a limit on what we can do. So we need to be very careful with that. Otherwise, we wind up looking like Santa Claus at Christmas time. And that is not something we want to do. Those that provide a service to the people that live in the city of Mount Juliet need the help. And I'm proud to do that. But we do have to set a limit and be careful as to how if we're going to go over that limit, we need to have some rhyme or reason as to why we would do it.
Right. Any other comments? All right. Well, Vice Mayor, I thank you for the effort and the work you put in on putting the spreadsheet here together on this and everybody's involvement on this. And, you know, to your point, there are a lot of cities out there that spend a whole lot more on this than we do. And we do partner with these private organizations to be able to provide these services. And it helps reduce our overall size of our government here. So that's a positive thing on it too. We do have a resolution just for the sake of folks watching out there that does cap the overall total that we can spend on grants. So, and we've been very mindful to stay under that. All right. So with that, I'll call for the vote on this item unless there's any other last minute comments. All right. The item as amended one time to increase the 4 line items that were outlaid and $10,000 one-time donation to Mount Juliet Christian Academy. Please signify by saying aye. Aye. Resolution carries. Next item is a resolution adopting the Mount Juliet Greenway Trail Sidewalk Etiquette Rules. This is 11-4. Have a motion and a second. The item is on the table for discussion.
Okay.
Did you, Commissioner Milady?
I was just going to say it did go before the Parks Board. They did approve it. The took $32 that, and again, I wasn't asking for money at the last resolution. I was going to let them do that. But anyway, so I had them take that part out of the resolution. So they approved it and they made a decision to list only a certain portion of what's on the list and the rest of it's going to be a QR code and, you know, have the logos and the emergency numbers and that kind of thing. So Jennifer Diekman has already designed the signs. They're going to be your basic, they're not going to be your real decorative signs that, you know, we kind of wanted because that costs almost $1,000. So it's just on the posts that are already there. It's just your basic metal sign that just goes on the post is what it's going to be. That's the $32 that they approved. But again, this has nothing to do with the money because that's already taken care of with the Parks Board and the Parks Department. So this is the adoption of the language is what this is. Okay, if that makes sense.
Right. Vice Mayor?
We have, Mr. Marchetti, on a couple of occasions, we have adopted rules and done different things that have kind of bit us in the tail. This isn't going to be one of those, is it?
I don't think so. It's probably less inclusive or over-inclusive in parts. For example, I think there's a prohibition against scooters. If someone's in one of the mobile scooters because of a disability or an impairment, then you can't prohibit them. So it's going to take some discretion with enforcement of this to understand what we can and cannot do. That makes any sense.
Does this need anything additional, or can we adopt these rules of etiquette?
Can we play with it?
Sir?
Can we take a look and I was curious as to what the general feel was for the commission. So if you're in favor of these, if you want them more or less inclusive, we can play with those.
This
But
is
hopefully nobody's going to be getting this first reading.
this is one reading. It's a resolution.
Yeah. Oh.
Only reading, maybe is a better way of saying it, unless we defer.
Why don't you do it with subject to council's review to make sure we're not violating anything further in this? I think it's under inclusive, meaning it's excluding things which
May need to be included.
may need to be included.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Vice Mayor, do you have anything else?
Yeah, I would go ahead and like to make that an amendment to the resolution if we could.
Okay, what's your amendment?
Yes, sir. The amendment would be that we approve, subject to council's review and final approval. I mean, and basically what that amounts to is if they don't come back with something saying, but if they come back and say there's additional language that needs to be in there, then we probably need to add it. We can do that at a later date, or they can put it back on for the same resolution back on for approval by the commission.
Okay, so we have the motion.
Second.
We have a second.
Then for this-
Commissioner Trevette.
So when the parks actually had met up, I'm like, we had looked at all of the options when it came to electric devices for any type of ADA compliance, Marchetti. Is there any, I mean, because like the only thing that we really looked at is combustion motors. That was the only line item that we wanted to exclude. I don't see that being any form of ADA compliance there, but everything else was added in.
I thought it said no scooters. Did it specify gasoline?
No,
motor?
it was only, no scooters were allowed. It was just because, again, because we looked at potential ADA, any type of electric scooters for anyone out there. So the only thing that we were looking at, which was combustible engines, which would have been anything out there of any type of combustible engines, exactly what it is. Yeah, mopeds, electric scooters that were, I'm sorry, gas scooters, anything like that. But this is all combustion engine is what was sent. So I think once you get a chance to go ahead and review it, I think that will be.
We'll do it.
Yep. And also just to highlight with, to piggyback off of Commissioner Mullally, the signs were just basic of what we could be doing in-house versus trying to have it cost more. So it was just something to be able to put it out there where the officers had some form of accountability with some of these folks that were taking advantage of the Greenway. That's all it was. That's the way the park looked at this.
Do we have a total cost? I know it's being covered out of the parks budget, but do we know what the cost?
It was less than $2,000 is what Rocky had stated.
In the original amount.
And this was for all the signs.
Right, but how much was the original amount that they were asking for? It was like $100,000, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
something ridiculous. I thought it was in the 60s or 70s, I thought originally, but we took it all the way down to less than 2,000. So.
Commissioner Hefner.
It sounds like there's some more work that needs to be done on this. So is there any reason why we can't defer this? Because I'd like to see what the final language is on these signs.
I thought they had sent that out, didn't they?
Well,
Did they send that out to everyone? No. Okay.
I'm not sure I got the final version from the attorney.
Okay.
His requested it.
I would say I would
Amendments.
prefer just to pass it and be done with it and let council handle this. And if they need to bring it back to us, they can, but that would be their discretion. It's just, I don't want to, Lord knows, I don't want to play attorney.
One I'm looking at is not the one we sent to Sheila, or supposed to have been sent to Sheila, but she didn't get it.
Oh, okay, so wait, we got something different going on then?
Yes.
Motion to defer.
I think we got a motion to defer, and I believe you were second, and I'll recognize Commissioner Mullally.
You got what, Gino, did you say? What'd you get?
We sent a different etiquette rules but it didn't get here.
Council sent
Yes.
your own list
Of
to,
revisions to, we think, make it more legal.
oh, okay. So we didn't know
So
about.
we don't want to be,
I don't remember seeing it, but I could have overlooked it.
so
It could have been stuck someplace.
I think our attorney is advising us to
Okay.
not be less legal.
Right.
So we have a,
Sometimes I've advised against being more legal, so.
we have a motion, I think, a motion to defer on the table, and that has been seconded. Is there any questions, comments, debate on the motion to defer? All right, I will call for the vote then on all in favor of deferral for one meeting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, that's deferred one meeting. On 11.5, a resolution requesting that the city manager and finance director advertise for an architect to complete a conceptual drawing of the new city hall complex consisting of approximately 80 to 100,000 square feet to house numerous city departments and a youth center on the city-owned property located on Clemens Road. Vice Mayor? We have a motion.
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
We have a motion and we have a second. Okay.
And if we could have discussion if I could be recognized.
Yes, sir.
I have been doing some research, talking with the city manager and the deputy city manager, talking to numerous folks. We already have Kimley Horn under contract now to do, they can do this without there being any cost to us. I've already talked to them, and this falls under the scope of their contract because of the parks component that we're talking about. I would tell you that what I'm looking for more than anything else is to set up a committee. I don't think you and I had discussed this, and set up a committee to study, a research and development committee to study what we need, where we need it. It would include members of City Hall, obviously the city manager, architects, engineers, professional folks, people that do this for a living, and then determine what is needed before we start putting out an amount of money that is needed. We also have allocated in the budget $10 million that we were receiving $10 million from the federal government. Unfortunately, we don't know whether that money could be used towards that particular purpose. So we've got to find that out as well. So there's a lot of research that has to be done in this. And so what I would prefer to do at this point is to put together a committee to look at this and do some research and come back to the commission with a recommendation, not only for this particular location, but also for the other locations as well. See which one fits best what we want to accomplish.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Mullally?
You mentioned a youth center. Any visions? You mentioned a youth center. Any visions?
Did I mention a youth center? Is that what you're saying?
That in the ordinance, it includes a youth center. Do you
Well,
have?
yes, ma'am. Actually, what we were talking about doing was we had originally talked to the senior center and talking about doing a youth center / senior center at that location on Clemens Road. They've got 3.5 acres over there. One of their big challenges is coming up with $7, $8, $10 million, whatever it may cost for them to do that program. So what we were looking at the possibility of doing at that time was a senior center and a youth center to put on that property. Now I got back and looked at it and I thought, well, what we're looking at here is something that's going to take care of the city of Mountain Juliet for 20 to 25 years. Half of that property over there is parks. You've got 10 total acres over there, and it's Ethan Page Park. It would be a great place to go ahead and put a large multi-use facility that would include City Hall, that would include a youth center, maybe the senior center. We would have the swimming pool, the parks location would be over there with for the youth center, and have an indoor pool location, kind of a Jimmy Floyd thing going on. You know, these are ideas But before we go to an architect and before we put a budget in, I think it'd be a good idea to go in there and see exactly what we want at that location. And what we accomplish will be something to take care of the city for the next 20 to 25 years, as opposed to the next 2 to 5 or next 5 to 10. Let's do something 60 to 70,000 square feet, 80,000 square feet that takes care of everything we need to take care of. But let me say this also. Let's don't assign it a number yet. Because if you put, we're going to put $10 million out there. Well, guess what that bill is going to come back at? It's going to come back at $10 million. You remember when we asked for a property and they found out we had $2.3 million and we had 37 pieces of property that all of a sudden miraculously cost $2.3 million all over the city of Mount Juliet.
They all cost.
It was
2.3.
amazing. So I don't want to go that far. That's the reason I'm saying let's put together a committee, study it, figure out what we want to accomplish, and then bring it back to this commission for with a recommendation.
You got house numerous city departments in there. Is there anything in mind, or is it just looking for guidance from a committee?
I've said numerous times that if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room. I think probably what we need to do is get some really, really talented, smart people. People who have expertise in not only building, but they have expertise in engineering, architecture, maintenance, Mr. Trevette, people with an expertise in doing what we're wanting to do, rather than a bunch of politicians sitting around trying to make that decision. I don't think that's ever a good idea. So that would be my recommendation. Let's put together people who actually do it for a living and know the numbers and know the tactics and come back with a recommendation.
So to be clear, are you withdrawing this resolution?
Yes, sir. And I would just ask, if we would, that you would appoint a committee to accomplish what we want to accomplish using Kimley Horn. Since we already have them at our disposal on this, I think they've proven numerous times to be kind of the go-to guys for us.
Our city attorney, I think, has something to.
I just want to make sure they understand, because the master agreement says that for any quote additional services, they're charged at their regular hourly rate. So before they start drawing or looking or investigating, I just want to caution, make sure you have in writing that.
And we can bring.
I haven't seen the attachments for what their scope of services is. All we approved was a master agreement to govern any work that they do. So
when the conversation I had with them, Mr. Marchetti, when we were going through the process, just the conversation that we had was that we would be talking about the parks component to the program, or to the project, the parks being the youth center, potentially the senior center, that falls within the parameters of the Parks Department, Parks and Recreation. And that would actually bring this into compliance in the scope of the contract that we've already put in place. Now, this was the young lady with Kimley Horn that I was speaking of. If there's anything that falls outside of that, then I would absolutely bring it back to the
I guess what
commission.
I'm saying, I haven't seen.
Okay.
And maybe you have the scope of services. All we've seen is the master contract, just the general terms, and then it talks about attachment A, B, C for the actual work they're going to ask to be done. That we haven't seen. So I'd just say it'd be good for them to send that so you make sure you've got it all, which you may have.
So I can take care of that without if they've got your blessing, move forward with this in that manner, then.
I'll say this: I'm definitely very open-minded to anything, because we've got a lot of challenges here, and I think the city manager could probably list numerous things that we've had challenges with. But I'm very open-minded to better ways to do this, and I've got a mind to the future, and I appreciate that. We're talking about looking out for the next 20 years or so down the road, and many times we've been guilty of band-aiding a little thing. I would caution, I don't want to see anything done that's going to derail our project and the momentum we already have going with the police department there. I know that was a big project, and think everybody's excited to see that. City Manager, do you have anything else to add on this?
No, Mayor, I think what you and the commission and the vice mayor were speaking of makes a lot of sense. What we could do if the committee was formed before we bring in the architects and engineers from Kimley Horn, whoever, is just meet from a staff standpoint of experts we've got in-house, elected body members, what you sort of envision with the city hall, the layout of that particular thing, and then the same with the pool. We could do that with a series of doing some site visits of other communities that's done very similar things. That way, other than staff time, there's no cost initially up front. And then once we sort of iron that down with our elected body, then we could go further at things that might cost the city to draw up. So the committee would probably be most beneficial on the front end to work with staff. That way it's more of a volunteer-based thing for any experts outside of the city that may just want to contribute because they love their community before we get into that next phase, I guess you'd say, of cost. Because you're right, they will bill for anything beyond what they're doing in parks. This would just be added on. So,
all right. Well, I'll say this resolution 11.5 was part of the set agenda. Is there anyone opposed to removing this? Seeing none, then if there's no objection, then we'll remove 11.5 and we'll move forward. All right. Our final item on the agenda is 11.6, a resolution approving the attachment to the master agreement between the City of Mount Juliet, Tennessee and the Water Management Services, LLC for the Cedar Creek Interceptor Equalization Basement Assessment, Metering Station Rehabilitation Replacement, and the Sewer Pocket Plan to serve Old Lebanon Dirt Road and John Wright Road, and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement. Have a motion?
Second.
And we have a second. Any discussion on this item? All right, all in favor of the item, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes unanimously. I heard no. And as long as we don't have an objection, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.